Wondering if this was one of them. This was the house of mine.
A small village on the northwest coast of Sardinia. At first glance, it looks like a forgotten seaside town, but for more than a century, this was one of the island's most important mining communities. Its name comes from the Italian word for silver, and silver is exactly what brought people here. The ore hidden beneath the cliff had been known since Roman times, but it was during the 19th century that Argentiera truly came to life. Miners arrived from across Sardinia. Houses, workshops, and processing plants were built beside the sea. Day and night, the town revolved around the mine. At its peak, hundreds of workers extracted silver, lead, and zinc from the surrounding hills. The mine shaped everything. It provided jobs, built a community, and connected this remote corner of Sardinia to international markets. But mining towns live and die by what lies underground. When the ore became less profitable, the mine slowly declined. In 1963, it closed for good. Families left, businesses disappeared, and the town fell silent. Today, Argentiera is one of Sardinia's most fascinating industrial heritage sites. The old mine buildings still stand against the coastline, surrounded by rugged cliffs and crystal clear water. It is a place where industry, history, and nature meet. A place built by miners, shaped by silver, and frozen in time. Today we are exploring Argentiera. Here is an interesting building, a little bit far from the core of the mine that we will take a look in a few minutes. Today the building stands empty. The windows are gone, the doors have disappeared, and the walls slowly surrender to time. But these rooms were never silent. The more we explore, the more clues begin to appear. At first glance, these rooms seem empty, but in reality, they are covered in evidence. The holes in the walls, the steel brackets, the ceramic insulators, and the cable routes all point to a highly technical purpose. What remains today are not the machines themselves, but their footprints. Large electrical panels once occupied these walls. Cables passed between floors. Power was distributed throughout the mining complex from spaces like this one. In many ways, this was the nerve center of the operation. Without electricity, pumps would stop. Ventilation systems would fail. Ore processing equipment would grind to a halt. The miners working underground depended on infrastructure like this one every single day, even if most never saw it. Standing here now, it's difficult to imagine the activity that once filled these rooms.
And here is where the miners lived. There is over there is a church. We're gonna probably try to go there.
This was another very interesting building that I was trying to understand what was used for. At first glance, it is just another ruin, but the more we look around, the more interesting it becomes. The first thing that caught my attention is the large concrete structure running through the building, as you can see over there. It doesn't look decorative and it doesn't look residential. In fact, it feels like the building was designed around that. That immediately made me wonder if this place was connected to the movement of material through the mining complex. We are standing above the mine with the sea just below us. And I think the position is actually really important. In Argentiera, the story didn't end when the ore was extracted from the ground. The ore still had to be processed, transported, stored, and eventually shipped away. Could this building have been part of that chain? Perhaps the channels once carried ore between different stages of the processing. Perhaps conveyor systems ran through here, or maybe pipes and infrastructure connected the mine to facilities closer to the coast. The truth is, we don't know, and we really never have a confirmation, but the building keeps offering clues. The corridor running through the center doesn't feel like a hallway in a house, it feels more like a service passage connecting different operational areas. And then in front of us there is the structure. I don't know if it was a fireplace, I don't see any chimney above. But that's an interesting clue. And then there was also a hole on the ground that I'm wondering if that was used maybe to process the material here and send it back to a location for shipment.
Now we are on the other side of the town. We were there, over there. So we went all around, and now we're going up to a church that is at the top of the hill. The buildings, one of them over there was called the washer, and that was a building that was utilized to separate precious metals from metals that were just attached, and the result there were many rocks. And they say that from 56 tons of minerals extracted per day through the washer and leveraging on the different weights between rocks and metals, they were able to extract 18 tons of precious minerals that were utilized, precious metals that were utilized, they were sold, they were marketable. And of course, in every town there was always a church. This is church, we're gonna go check it out now. This is called asilo. Asilo means daycare. The church that you can see here is called the Church of Santa Barbara. And interestingly enough, in most villages, the church sits at the center of the daily life. Here is different. The Church of Santa Barbara stands just above the settlement, overlooking both the mine and the sea. And that's probably no coincidence. Santa Barbara is the patron saint of miners. So for the people who lived and worked here, this wasn't just a place of worship, it was a symbol of protection. Every day,
men descended into tunnels beneath these hills, never knowing exactly what dangers awaited underground. Before a shift began, many would have passed beneath the gaze of the church standing above them. What I find interesting is that the church appeared only when Argentiera began to grow into a real community. But the early 20th century, this wasn't just a workplace anymore. It was a town. Families lived here, children went to school here, and the miners built a church dedicated to the saint who had watched over generations of workers across Europe's mining regions.
And this is another beautiful view of the time where there was the washer. The extraction sites are all around the town, and then there are all of those were the apartments of the miners. And this is where Charlotte, wait baby, I think this is where the washer was. Charlotte, that's incredible.
Alright, throughout the video we have seen the house and the apartments of the miners at the beginning of the video, a little bit far from the mining site. Then we saw the building where electricity was probably produced and managed. Then there was the other building where some sort of manufacturing process was created, it was performed. And then we have this building right here, which is probably one of the most important, if not the most important building in the Argentiera, called Laveria, which in Italian means the washer. The metals were not extracted here. Metals were extracted in the extraction sites all around the town. But here is where the metals became valuable. Everything that came out of the mine was mixed with waste rock. Before it could be sold, transported, or exported, it had to be concentrated. And that is a connector of probably a pipe for the water flow. Inside the structure, water, gravity, machinery, and human labor work together to separate the valuable minerals from the surrounding rock. Standing here today, it's difficult to imagine the scale of the operation. But at its peak, dozens of tons of material passed through this building every single day. And its location is no coincidence. The Laveria stands right beside the sea, because the sea was part of the process. Once the metal had been washed and concentrated, it could be loaded onto ships and sent beyond Sardinia to markets across Europe. In many ways, this building was the bridge between the underground world of the miners and the outside world. Everything extracted from the mountain eventually passed through here. Without the mine, there would be no Laveria. But without the Laveria, the mine itself would have had little value. This wasn't just another industrial building, it was the heart of Argentiera's entire operations. Thank you so much for watching and being part of this journey with us. This is a series and is far from over, and we have already recorded some incredible episodes exploring more hidden places, history, beaches, and everyday life here in Sardinia. If you enjoyed this one, definitely go check out the rest of the series, and we will see you in the next adventure.